Point Black. Be prepared to be engaged and enlightened.
And entertained.
This is not just radio. It is Point Black. I'm Adolphus Pruitt.
And I'm the Reverend Daryl Gray.
Hey, Daryl, did you know that we have an election going on coming up in November?
No, man.
I mean, you can, because...
You mean all of those ads and stuff actually mean that there's a... I haven't heard any serious stuff going on out there. I've been watching the trial. I've been watching the trial.
Uh-oh. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to enlighten my good friend Daryl that there's an election going on.
Okay.
And there's an August primary, and there's a November general.
Yeah.
Got it. And today, you know what, Daryl? Today is a special day. It's not every day. As a matter of fact, folks,
yes,
we've had the police chiefs sitting in the city in here. We've had the special agent in charge for the FBI in here on several occasions.
Yes, we have.
And now we had to step it up. We had to step it up and get the prosecutor.
County prosecutor.
Yes. St. Louis County prosecutor.
Yes.
So you want to introduce our guest?
Listen, it would be my pleasure and my honor. St. Louis County Prosecutor Wesley Bell. The thing I can say in introducing him is I'm remembering these words, Wesley. You might remember them. By Bob. Young man who had a political background, had some street credit, ran against a political giant. Not just in this region, but in this state, Bob McClellan, and ran on a campaign of being a progressive prosecutor, believing that you can't police your way out of crime and that justice has to be fair. And so it is my delight and my privilege and my honor to welcome St. Louis County Prosecutor Wesley Bell to Point Black.
Candidate for...
Oh, he is a candidate. Oh, I keep forgetting. Yeah, he's a candidate for the 1st Congressional District. Candidate for the 1st Congressional District. I'm telling you that.
Hey, Wesley.
Man,
welcome.
Thank you. Honored to be here with the two legends. Actually, three.
Three.
I don't know if I can acknowledge.
Yes.
He don't have a microphone, so I don't know if I can acknowledge him. But
it doesn't matter. We can hear him all the way over here.
Gotcha. Yeah. Just telepathically, you can just know he's here in the building.
It's his house.
It's his house. Well, Wes, let's make sure we do it. I mean, I think most people will know that, and we definitely want to get to Wesley. We want to talk about his campaign and his platform and all of that. But we would be remiss if we were not the first to congratulate our producer, DJ legend extraordinary, BJ the DJ, who will be receiving on June 1st his doctorate, and we are honored. We congratulate you. I know we do a lot of cutting up on here, but it's big stuff, BJ, and we just want you to know that we're extremely proud of you, man.
Absolutely,
extremely proud of you, Doctor.
Absolutely.
The legendary Dr. BJ. That's how you'll be referred to from now on. The legendary DJ Dr. BJ. Potential member of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity. Okay, let's now, I guess we can move on now. I've done everything I need to do. I can go home. But Wesley.
That's how Omegas do it.
That's how we do it. We do it. Listen, I know Kappas do it differently.
We make them.
But Wesley, and Adolphus is right, 1st Congressional District. Now, let's get to it. Now, initially, Wes, I saw some campaign material up, and it talked about somebody U.S. Senate and it was saying bye Bob, and then it was saying bye Josh. And everybody saw bye Bob, and you were successful, and then we saw bye Josh, and we, a lot of people felt you'd be successful in that, and then somewhere along the line, you decided not to do that campaign and to run for the 1st Congressional District. A lot of people, have been speculating and as my grandmother would say, signifying, but we want to hear it from you. What made you move from there to here?
Yeah, and first and foremost, there's no need to speculate. I don't hide. I'm here, and folks know how to reach me. Matter of fact, I've sat in this studio when I made the announcement and talked about it then on a couple different occasions. But for me, it was an easy decision to be quite honest with you. As I was getting around this district, what I saw is a district that needs resources. It needs we need a lot of work. This is not Beverly Hills or Martha's Garden or whatever you call it. We need there's a lot of issues that we need to address here. We have a gun violence issue. We need to see common sense gun violence. A lot of people that look like me are not only on victims, but also disproportionately filling up our jails. We need to be able to attract more jobs in industry here. We need to, public safety is an issue. I don't care what side of the fence or side of the aisle that you sit on, is something that's important. Education, there's so many issues that we need in this district, and we need someone who's going to go up there and build the coalitions to actually get things done. And so for me, it was an easy decision, and for voters, I think it's a clear distinction. Do you want someone who's results-oriented or not? And so I think people know from my time as Ferguson City Councilman, being a part of the coalition that brought community policing and court reforms, working with President Obama's Department of Justice on the Ferguson consent decree. I was in that room for hours at a time now as county prosecutor in a place with 88 municipalities and 55 police departments. You can't get anything done without figuring out ways to get people to work together. And while you hear a lot of dysfunction around the country in different jurisdictions, you don't hear about that in St. Louis County because we work together. And I think we need more of that in D.C. as well.
Hey, Wesley, I know we're on the campaign, but I want to just step back 1 minute, because the one thing that has been on everybody's watch list for the past few months was the outcome of the young lady not being charged as an adult,
not being certified, correct?
As adult, and had she been certified, of course, that would have been something you would have had to. Assumption you would have had to prosecute.
Correct.
Now the question is this, but there's a lot of talk about folks who brought the other young lady to the fight, and that her parents brought. There's a lot of speculation about how all of that, people around her, and so folks always say, why wasn't the other folks around the young lady charged if they brought this young lady to the fight and they was involved in this and that? I don't know if you got any background you can share on. I mean, we hear all sort of stuff.
Right. First and foremost, I'm praying for both young ladies. Let me be clear on that.
Sure.
We want the young lady who was hospitalized. My understanding is she's been released, and we hope that she makes a full recovery. The young lady who was charged in the juvenile court, obviously our prayers are with her as well and their families. But the bottom line is, in Missouri, and I know you all know this, but folks listening may not know, is that in Missouri there's a wall between the adult courts and the juvenile court.
Yes.
So it's not like we get to give input. It's not like we get a report on juvenile cases. We hear about them pretty much like you all, because there's privacy concerns. So we're limited in what we would know about any investigations regarding those particular cases. But as you had already pointed out, the juvenile court made the decision to keep that case in the juvenile court. And so obviously we respect that decision, and we got enough serious crimes and things in our office to keep us busy.
But if the adults or some other folks transported the other young lady to the fight, even though she's the one who got injured and some of the worst of it, but there was other people who transported her to that event, and they was there, especially if one of them was adult, and they watch all of this go down.
Right.
Are they subject to criminal penalties for any of that?
So I'm going to talk in generalities, because it's not just for ethical reasons. We don't want to talk about folks who haven't been charged with anything. If a certain set of facts or behaviors rises to the level of a criminal statute, then that's something that we would charge. That said, in a circumstance like that, there's a lot of things that we don't know. That we would be speculating on.
Right.
And in order to charge or convict someone, obviously you have to be able to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. So, for example, and again, I'm not talking about specifics, generalities. Parents take their kids to different places for a lot of different reasons, and we don't know what the parents knew, what the parents don't know.
Gotcha.
So that would be a tough set of facts with respect to fitting it into a criminal statute. But most importantly, I think our concerns are with two young ladies who, young lady who was, dealt with a serious injury and is likely still dealing with a serious injury, and then a young lady who is dealing with the criminal side of it in the juvenile courts. And obviously, we hope that young lady makes a full recovery.
Well, one quick follow-up. So in Congress, say you successful, you elected to the Congress, have you had a chance to think about, from a policy perspective or from a legislative perspective, what you may like to see happen or pursue in the Congress to sort of address stuff like this, or maybe even address what's kind of, I keep forgetting our state attorney general who went at the
Andrew Bailey.
Andrew Bailey.
Yeah, we try not to say certain people's names on
No, you okay?
Go back and redact
who
that.
went after the school district about that
Right.
stuff? I mean, is there
Right.
anything you think we could do at the congressional level to try to help with all of this, or is it still something that the local and the states really need to deal with?
You know what? And let me say this: as a Hazelwood East graduate,
Okay.
and I go back at least once or twice a year and speak to students. The fact that he was without any evidence of the sort saying that it was their DEI program that initiated this when the situation did not even happen on school grounds. We've seen that outcry has been hushed. Once the facts now that they have come out, there's some, but we got to keep in mind we have a federal, we have a division of powers, if you will, and so we can't do everything on one level. So there's some things that are going to have to be dealt with on a local level. If there's some opportunities to introduce legislation that will positively impact this region, particularly with our kids and situations like that, obviously I'd be open to them. But you can't get into the chasing a situation and looking at specific facts and saying, oh well, we got to come up with legislation because of one terrible set of facts. Right. I think we got to keep things in perspective. And I think that the juvenile court in general does a very good job with the services that they offer young people. But there's some things that I think, to your point, that we can talk about.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break. We're in the studio with St. Louis County Prosecutor candidate for the 1st Congressional District, Wesley Bell. And, of course, we're in here with Darryl Gray, and we will be right back.
You don't have any sense of
And we're back.
Yes, we are back, and we are here with St. Louis County Prosecutor Wesley Bell, who is a candidate for the 1st Congressional District. Pruitt, I'm glad that you started asking about positions, because sometimes you think these days, are people still concerned about people's positions and people's platforms and issues, or is politics, has it become just, social media name recognition, whoever gets the bump? Wesley, because you came out of that, and I don't want to say your popularity, but your work came out of primarily the Ferguson movement. And many of us, worked for you and with you then to get you elected as county prosecutor. And there's some who feel, okay, if Wes gets elected, then what happens to criminal justice reform? What happens to, making sure that we had someone in the county prosecutor's office that was concerned about the same criminal justice issues that we are concerned about? And if Wesley gets elected, then, what happens with that? So I guess it's a two-part question. Does your commitment to criminal justice reform continue to Washington, D.C., number one, and what would that look like? And number two, that void that, I believe, I'm looking around, I don't know who else is out there. And so what happens to all of that work here in St. Louis County?
So first and foremost, I've had several people come up to me and say, "Hey, but if you leave, like, what's going to happen?" And I'm telling you, first and foremost, thank you. You couldn't give me a bigger compliment. I appreciate that, Reverend. And when anyone approaches me with that, sometimes when you're running for a different position, it's easy to get frustrated. Like, well, that's not what I'm running for.
Right.
But that's really a compliment, and not just to me, but the men and women who work in our office. And I'm proud of the work that we've done. And so, first and foremost, keep in mind, these positions are not permanent.
Gotcha.
And I came into this role knowing that I was a placeholder. And I wanted to do everything that I possibly could to leave this office in a better position than when I came to this position. And so one of the big things that we have been laser focused on is keeping track of the data. Because tracking the data that tells you whether or not what you're doing has a positive impact. And for people who don't track the data and they get up there and talk about all this stuff and brag, they don't know what they're talking about if they're not tracking that. And so we created a data unit. And so, and part of that was to your question is that we wanted to make certain that when this time was up, when my time was up, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, that whoever came in would have a large enough case study, if you will, to know what works and what doesn't work. And also, and there would be a mandate to continue the good work that we were doing in this office. And I can tell you this, Reverend Gray, because we've had this conversation. I don't know if you remember when I got in office, a little before I got in office, from day one, I started preparing potential leaders to be ready to step into this office, because again, we never know how long these things will be in these particular spaces or roles. And so there is a small group of prosecutors that I know would continue the work and would do a really good job. I don't want to throw names out there, right, because there's been several people, right, who have done a good job by me, and I don't want to put my thumb on the scale against 3 or 4 people that I think would do really good work. But just know that that's something that I've been preparing for since I got into office. And then secondly, if I get the honor of serving as the next congressman, you're not losing me by any stretch of the imagination. The commitment to criminal justice will only grow. It will only expand and broaden. We'll have more resources, a larger platform to not only help the St. Louis County Prosecutor's Office, but the Circuit Attorney's Office and so many stakeholders in this region that need help. Because again, this is not Martha's Vineyard. This is not Beverly Hills. We don't have all the resources overflowing. We need people who are going to come in here, roll up their sleeves, and do the work. And what I'll say is, check the track record, check my resume at every stop. We get things done. It's been about results. Some people want to thump their chest and make good speeches and speak loud, and some people get things done. And I'm in that latter category.
Wesley, what is it about the incumbent record or her term in office that drives you to an issue where you're saying that it needs to be replaced and you can do a better job? What are the things that move you more as relates to that? And there's a couple other questions we asked. And I just want to say this, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to try to ask the questions that we know you're going to be asked.
Right.
You would want us to ask.
That's fair.
Right.
And so we can't read all of your minds out there. We can, but we won't. It's against the law. We're now out of court order. We can't.
I'm trying to be serious here. You're making me laugh.
We do that in here. Don't worry, we do that in here.
It's okay to laugh.
We do that in here.
Laughter's good medicine, man.
We all in this place. We're all fallible, and we have no problem with showing it. At least I don't. They're all so perfect,
Well,
but you get what I'm saying. Because
blame
folks
my
out there,
mama.
she's doing a good job, and then why he's just running against her because he wants to or whatever. Let's address it.
You know what? It goes back to what I talked about before about actual results, and what I see. And again, this is nothing personal against the Congresswoman. Mm-hmm. For me, it's about this. This is my home. This is where I'm from. And I want to see this, what I believe is a sleeping giant, this St. Louis region. I want to see it wake up. And I think we have the ability to do it. but we need leadership that is going to be laser focused on getting those results. And you know, one of the things that was the straw that broke the camel's back was what I look at is in D.C. there are resources that are coming to every single district, no matter who is in that district, based on earmarks, based on certain legislation that's already been passed. So whether you have a congressperson or have a vacancy, there's certain resources that are coming. But anything beyond that, you got to go up there and build the coalitions to bring those resources home. And if you're not working with the Democratic caucus, you're not working with the Black caucus, and we've seen so often that our Congresswoman is not doing that. When you're not working with the president, when the president is of your party, and she is a part of the uncommitted movement, you're not going to bring the resources home that need to be brought here. And I want to say this too: our government is based on coalition building. You can't do anything without a majority. And if you're not going up there and building those relationships and building those coalitions, we are missing out on the resources that we need. And so, you know, when I look at the Congresswoman's record, she hasn't passed one single bill in the time that she's been up there. And we continue to see her vote against her own party, vote against President Biden's agenda. And it is hurting us in this district. When we look at funds that came from the infrastructure bill with respect to the airport, we didn't get a dime for our airport, which is needed. Springfield, with their small airport, got several $1 million. We didn't get a dime. And so we need someone up there who's going to build those relationships, bring those resources home. And that's what I have a track record of doing, and that's what you can expect from me as the next congressman.
Some people, and the Congresswoman, we hope will be on the show, as well as some of the other candidates who are running for that congressional seat, and so we'll give them an opportunity to you know, make their own points on their own issues. You talked about building bridges, the support that you've gotten from the unions. You know, I mean, and unions typically go. You know, they typically go progressive. They typically go with the incumbent. They particularly, you know, go progressive. When you talk about building bridges, in addition to the unions who seem to have come aboard your campaign pretty wholeheartedly, what else are you looking at? Because I'm a progressive, and so by nature, I'm looking at building alliances. That's generally what progressives do. And so,
I'm sorry. Whenever I hear progressive, it sort of gets stuck in my throat.
Yeah,
so you know.
That's why we try to keep water around for him. What does that look like? Because I know the Democratic Party talks about being a big tent and blah, you know, all of that. I'm an independent Democrat. I mean, what does that building bridges look like to you? In addition to the union support, what other? Who else has been waving the Wesley Bell flag, and if they haven't been waving it, who else are you trying to bring onto your campaign?
You know, and when it comes to building relationships, there's just no shortcut. There's no workaround. I can't tell you how many countless meetings I sat in, sometimes with 2 or 3 stakeholders, sometimes with members of the community, in my office now, sitting with families of victims. There's just no workaround. And one of the big, you know, and with respect to unions, that generally is a layup for the Democratic incumbent. But in this case, we are getting overwhelming support from unions. But that's because, you know what, I've got a track record of showing up and that's 60% of this job is being on the ground, listening to your constituents. Reverend Gray, when I ran for city council the first time, I wrote this platform up. I thought it was like Moses, you know, God handed down the place to Moses. I got in my first town hall, and man, my future constituents started telling me their issues and questions and concerns. Man, I tore that tore that platform up, and wrote another good one. But it came from the people that I was trying to represent and ultimately representing. And so one thing that I've never shied away from is, and I said this when I came in, I don't hide. We're going to show up, and not just during election time, and folks will tell you that, whether it be at the schools, whether it be unions, whether it be working with police departments, because as both of you know, when I came in, we didn't get any support from law enforcement. They didn't know me. We were running against a guy who was 30 years in, and that's all they knew. So they're like, who is this guy? Well, 4 years later, we getting support all around the county and all around even the city. And that's just because we sat down and talked to folks. And let me be clear, we didn't give them everything they wanted. You know, we created a conviction incident review unit that is one of its two tasks is to investigate wrongful doing by law enforcement. And, you know, in the history of St. Louis County, there has been 5 prosecutions for unlawful use of force, 5 of them. All 5 of them happened on my watch. Mm-hmm. So, and despite that, we still have great relationships with law enforcement because they know that we're going to be an honest broker. We're going to be fair. We created a Chiefs Advisory Commission or advisory committee so that we could work together, so that we could talk to them about issues. And a lot of things that we got done, for example, if you all remember, and this is something we absolutely talked about, was the idea of police departments investigating their own police shootings. Right. Well, you know what? No legislation came from D.C. to change that. No legislation came from Jeff City to change that. We changed that just by sitting with our departments, and now none of them investigate their own police-involved shootings, and that's because of those relationships that we built. Those are results that we need to continue.
Real quick, Adolphus, I've got somebody that asked on Facebook Live, you know, as they talk about Congresswoman Bush, she has chosen principle over politics. Now that's obviously one of her supporters. They said because I guess they are responding to the comments you made. You know, she hasn't passed any legislation. She hasn't worked with the caucus or the president. You know, for that fact. But they've said that in her case, she's chosen principle over politics. Now, how do you respond to something like that? Now, obviously, it's coming from one of her supporters.
Listen, and God bless them, and I'm glad that they're listening. And here's the thing: this job is about legislation. It's about coalition building. You know, and I've said this all the time. The best activists do not always make the best politicians, and the best politicians don't always make the best activists.
Is that why I can't get elected to anything? Oh, I'm sorry. Just go ahead. I'm sorry. I digress.
But let me add this part. Let me add this part. But working together, mountains get moved. But you need folks that are applying pressure on the outside, but you also need people at the table that understand the assignment of what legislation is about to actually get results passed that are going to help us. And I'll say this: at the time, when Ferguson happened, I was a municipal court judge, and it went from, oh man, he's one of the first black judges, to why is he a judge like in 6 months? I'm like, okay, that's fine. But while you guys are doing your thing, what I'm doing is working on the inside. I was the first judge to suspend thousands of warrants for folks who, you know, we're talking traffic tickets and people who didn't even know they had warrants. We were the first to suspend those warrants. And then I was the first municipal court judge to dismiss all of these old tickets, particularly failure to appears, when we would see someone with a stop sign violation, they miss a court date, and instead of having a $90 fine, now they got $700 in fine. We dismissed those things, but I was able to do it because I had a seat at the table. And so now in this role, listen, there is a place for folks to be activists, and God, I work with them. We have people on our campaign and sitting in this room that are activists, but we also need folks who who understand the legislative process, who are going to go up there and do the hard work of building coalitions to actually get legislation passed and resources to this district.
Let me switch for a minute. And the best way to go into this is, I remember right after Ferguson, we started collecting the data, demographic data on murders in the city of St. Louis. And we did it for all the way up to 2016. I remember sharing this stats with Daryl. Right. And what it would show was that 90% of the victims were African American, 90% of the perpetrators were African American. The 90% of the times it was done with a gun. 90% of the time the perpetrator had a past criminal history. And 90% of the time, or greater. When I said 90%, I'm saying 90% or greater. 90% was the baseline.
It was in that range. Yeah.
It was a baseline. That was just the base. It was always higher. And that 90% of the victims had drugs or alcohol in their system at the time of their demise. But so I'm saying they were black, majority male, had a past criminal history, had drugs and alcohol in their system at the time, and they were killed with a gun, or and if it was a perpetrator, used a gun. But the thing that jumped out at me more than anything else of all of that was 95% of them, of the perpetrators, and 95% of the perpetrators failed to have graduated from high school. Over and over again.
Right.
I say that to lead into this discussion about education. Because if you pull the data for the education of black children in our region, and I'm just not, folks say, well, you talking about St. Louis public schools, it's easy to pick on the public schools, Ferguson, Jennings, Riverview, it's easy to pick on them. But we pull the data across the board, and outside of maybe Clayton and Ladue, and maybe Parkway, I can't remember, but 90% of the black children at grades 3 and 4 were reading below level, whether they were in the all-black school district or in the mixed district in this region. Overall, they are failing to educate our children at a very early age. And we believe on our end that is just that's the oil in the pipeline,
right,
that is fueling all of this stuff we see about crime. So it'll be interesting to just get your take on what you think needs to happen at the federal level that can help us deal with this issue of educating children as a tool against crime.
Right.
Dolphus, you getting right to it. This is what we need to be talking about. First and foremost, there is a correlation between folks who have educations and lower crime rates. There's a correlation with folks who have opportunities and jobs and good paying jobs and lower crime rates. There is a correlation between folks who get treatment if they have substance use disorder, struggling with mental health, and lower crime rates. So as soon as we got into office, we started creating our diversion program and our diversion advisory committee. And so Dr. Kendra Holmes, who is the CEO, the first African-American CEO of Affinia, is the chair of our diversion program. And because we wanted to connect people with the help and treatment that they need, because we know that even the violent offenders don't start there. They start at lower level crimes, and if they get help, they're significantly less likely to graduate to the more serious stuff. So we've been focusing on catching those folks early and getting them the help that they need so that they don't graduate. But we didn't stop there, because those other points you made are also appropriate, is that we understand that some people don't have a substance use disorder problem or a mental health issue, which we want those folks to get help, but some of them might need education. So the community college is a part of our diversion team. Organizations that provide jobs, and not just jobs, because sometimes we assume that people just know how to keep a job. We work with the Urban League on job training and all of these folks, so that when we get someone who needs help, we can give them we don't do a cookie cutter. We can give them exactly the type of help that they need. And so I'm back to my data. thing because I'm a results person.
Mm-hmm.
So of now, the over 2,500 people that we've been able to direct into our diversion program, let's do a comparison and contrast. In Missouri, after a year, our diversion, our recidivism rates are at about 45%, meaning about half the people go back. Half those people, and most of those people look like you and me. After 10 years nationally, our recidivism rates get to 70 and 80%, meaning 7 to 8 out of 10 people reoffend and go back. Of the people that we've been able to divert into our treatment programs and give them the help that they need, we're talking a 3.9% recidivism rate, 97% success rate. So when people talk about what are we doing, we don't just give you empty rhetoric. This is the data. This is the result. So when we talk about being result oriented, this is how we help could divert people from the serious and violent offenses. And also we prevent more victims from being victimized when we're able to help these folks, because oftentimes we got the same pool of people that are victims and defendants. And so we try to help all of these folks so we can prevent them from graduating to the serious and violent crimes. And that's what we've been doing in our diversion program. And I'm so proud of the team and all of our partners, starting with the FINIA, the Urban League, Places for People, and so many other folks.
We're going to take another break. We're, of course, in here with Prosecutor Wesley Bell, candidate for the 1st Congressional District. And, of course, we can't be here if Darryl Gray isn't here. We'll be right back with more on Point Black.
And we are coming back with more of Point Black. I love that music. I just love coming in on that music. Pruitt is the producer of that music. He created that sound. So that sound for Point Black, Pruitt did that on some app that he had. I did pretty good. As a matter of fact, I think he missed his calling. I guess he
graduated from the first class of the Visual Performing Arts High School.
Okay.
And you know what? And that would make him a great candidate for Phi Alpha Delta Pre-Log fraternity. That would make him an excellent candidate for that. They take people.
You were great to do something else.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if instead of sending those letters to BJ, if you have any concerns, if you want to make suggestions on content for our interviews, or you want to suggest a guest, or you want to just talk back to Pruitt, you can do that on just about any social media platform. You go to @PointBlackSTL. That's @PointBlackSTL. We are on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on X, formerly known as Twitter. We're on a whole lot of those other things that I just don't know. And if you can't remember that, you can always go to the iHeartRadio app, which is my favorite. Go to the iHeartRadio app. Up in the top right-hand corner is a talk back mic. You press the mic, and you can talk back to Pruitt all you want. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, we just appreciate your comments. We appreciate your feedback. We appreciate your support. We are in studio with Congressional candidate, County Prosecutor Wesley Bell, and as we were leaving before the break, Pruitt, I like what you did, because, as I said, I still believe that campaigns should not be about name recognition and personality. I believe that campaigns should be about issues, and it should be about people's positions. And we talked about education. Wesley, what other things are you hearing? Because I've got my last question. I'm gonna save it. Pruitt's gonna let me know when I can ask that real last question. Because Wesley, you usually gets the last part. But I know for me, I agree with Pruitt. Education, and for me, I'm a big public education person. But voting rights is in jeopardy. I don't hear a lot about economic development. Public safety. We kind of weave that into criminal justice reform, gun violence. I mean, when we look around the country, but. The John Lewis Voting Rights Act, we can't get Congress to do anything. The George Floyd Act, anything dealing with gun control, common sense gun control. It seems like, and it's the circus is in Washington, D.C. What are you hearing? Are you hearing these same things on the campaign trail? Are these the issues that people are talking about? Because, we hear the stuff on CNN. Mm-hmm. We hear that stuff. But, on the local stations, on the door to door, kitchen to kitchen, table to table, union hall to union hall, honestly, what are you hearing? What are people really concerned about?
We're hearing a lot of things. Obviously, this is a very diverse district. And so, you have a lot of different opinions and a lot of people, a lot of issues that are important to a lot of different people. But I think some overriding things that we hear consistently is the fact that our government is so polarized that we rarely get anything done. And I think folks are tired of that. They're tired of the excuses. They want results. They want to know that their voices are being heard. And what I'll say is when I look at my campaign, and I don't feel the need to talk about other folks' campaign. They can talk about that on their own. But every stop that I've made, I've figured out a way to work with folks, get folks to work together, whether it be Ferguson, whether it be St. Louis County, and we intend to do that in Washington, D.C. as well. But when you look at particular issues, obviously you talked about gun violence. Education is a big deal. We have some very good schools in this district, as Adolphus brought up, visual and performing arts, very good school. But then we have some schools that are struggling as well, and everything in between. And if we're trying to grow this region and attract families to move back here or keep our talented young people from moving, we're going to have quality schools. We're going to have quality jobs with livable wages. Those are things that we have to address. And then one big issue that we have in this region is our fractured form of government. When you go to outside of this region and you tell folks that St. Louis County has 88 municipalities and 55 police departments, they look at you like you're crazy. Like, how do you get anything done? And here's the problem. When you're trying to create a public safety strategy, it's hard to do that, to create 88 plus 1 strategies. When you're trying to create an economic development plan to turn this city and this region around, it's hard to do that 88 times 1. When we look at other regions that have been able to do that, Indianapolis and Atlanta, you look at them 20 years ago and where they are now, and several other places, they were able to do that from a unified front, working together. I mean, we can just look to the west of us in Kansas City, and they're doing laps around us. So one of the things we have to do is look for those opportunities that we can work together. And I'll tell you one easy one. The biggest liability of any city is its jail. That's the biggest liability. And Reverend Gray, you know all about that. Well, we have 2 of them. And so,
well, let's be clear now. Not that I'm the chair of the oversight committee. He said I know all about jails. I wanted to be clear about that.
Yeah. Not like that. We wasn't going there. There's attorney-client privilege. I wasn't going there.
Darryl, why you messed that up?
But at any
I wanted
rate,
that to just float out there.
BJ, I needed to make sure people understood what he was saying.
You got your bond money. But
oh man.
But yeah, those are opportunities that we can try to work together. We got 2 health departments, and during the shutdown, you had the city opening their businesses and the county closing them. Well, how does that move public safety and public health forward? There's some opportunities to work together, but we got to start thinking regionally. And I think that this congressional position, has historically been a leadership position in this region. It's the only elected position that goes in the city and the county. And so that's an opportunity to build relationships, to work on those issues that are going to move this region forward. And I think that that's something that I have a track record of doing, and that's something that you can expect from me as the next congressman.
Is that an endorsement of not better together?
No.
Are we talking about merging? Are we talking about regional government though?
No, we are looking at opportunities to work together, and whatever that looks like. And again, like I said, there's things that we can do. There was talk of merging the prosecutor's office and the circuit attorney's office. And again, I want to be honest. I did not want to do it because my office was running well and I didn't want the headache. But as I talked to probably both of you about, I was willing to do it if called upon because I thought it was the right thing for this region. And so we need more folks who are going to be looking at how do we work together. And that means including our municipal partners. We got a lot of folks who care about their communities and our municipalities. They need to have a seat at the table, but just finding ways to work together. Huh? We're not going to go and put the cart before the horse and put a plan before we even talk to the people about it. But I think everybody agrees that there's things that we can do to work together and look regionally.
You know, the UN court recently came out and ordered Israel to stop its ongoing invasion into Rafah. Ireland, Spain, and Norway just recently recognized Palestine as a Palestine state as a part of the two-state solution. There's all sort of stuff going on when we talk about foreign relations, but especially going on in the Middle East. Do you have a position on what's going on in the Middle East at all?
Oh, absolutely.
Pruitt took my question.
Oh, is that what it was? I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. In all seriousness, first and foremost, we want to see peace in that region. Right. We don't want to see an innocent Israeli or an innocent Palestinian harmed. I think that it's important that we stand with our partners. And one thing we learned from World War I and World War II, that we have to support our fellow democracies if we want to avoid these broad conflicts that we saw a few generations ago. And so I think people have to put some perspective on this. These tensions have been taking place in the Middle East for thousands of years. Some people just noticed in October and just, oh yeah, there's something going on in the Middle East. No, these tensions have been going on for thousands of years, and what you have, the biggest impediment to a lasting peace, and I'm not going to sit here and tell anybody that I have the solution for peace in the Middle East. Anybody that tells you that is lying to you. But what the structure of any lasting peaceful resolution looks like cannot include a terrorist state that is openly genocidal, that says in its charter we want to destroy not only Israel, but all Jews wherever they are in the West,
and
which includes us.
And you're speaking specifically about Hamas, not the Palestinian Authority,
Absolutely.
But we're talking about Hamas.
Absolutely. No, we're talking about Hamas, the terror state that ended this ceasefire in the first place. And so we want to see, and I want to be clear, in no uncertain terms, we don't want any innocent Palestinians, any innocent Israelis harmed. We want to see peace in that region. And I hope to be part of a coalition that is able to bring a lasting peace to this region. And that's exactly how I'm going to approach my position if I get the opportunity to serve.
You got 30 seconds to wrap us up, and you get to do it. You're going to take us out. You're going to take us out.
Okay. So first and foremost, thank you for having me on the show. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you and respect both of you. I think it's so important that we get people who in leadership who are results oriented. So you got to ask yourself, do you want folks that can talk a lot, or do you want folks who are going to get things done? And what I have a track record of doing, a resume of doing in Ferguson, was getting things done, community policing, court reforms, getting Ferguson off of CNN for the negative stuff. Also as the county prosecutor of working with a very diverse county with so many different entities and doing it in a way where we were able to move that county together, expand diversion programs, prosecute serious and violent offenders. And I think we need more of that approach in D.C. And what I'm asking folks to do is, look at our platform, look at the resume, and I'm asking for your support on August 6th to continue this work in D.C.
Check it out.
Well, listen, you've heard from candidate, County Prosecutor Wesley Bell. He's submitted his platform. We will be having the other candidates on. And we look forward to hearing from them too. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for supporting us and listening to Point Black, and we'll see you again on the radio.